Hello YouTube, and welcome to the ultimate review of the Electro-Harmonix 45000 Multitrack Stereo Looper. I know for a fact that there's not too many reviews or tutorials on this looper out there. Mostly what you'll find on a YouTube search will be looping demos and performances, but not too much info on the features, pros and cons, or some sort of honest review and buyer's guide. I did the research when I was about to buy my own Electro-Harmonix 45000, and that's when I realized that this video I'm putting up right now is actually the one I needed back then. So, if you've been searching for a comprehensive guide and review of the Electro-Harmonix 45000, this is the right video for you. Here's what we'll cover. 1. Why the Electro-Harmonix 45000? 8 reasons why this could be the looper for you. 2. Why not the 45000? 6 good reasons why you might just stop and think and maybe decide not to get it. 3. The review, where I quickly go through an assessment of the 45000's casing, faders, buttons, connections, and more. And 4. The background. Although I didn't prepare a tutorial this time where I actually teach you how to use this looper, at least I made sure to include as background to the reviews a performance where I am actually using pretty much everything I talk about. So if you're ready, let's go check it out, the Electro-Harmonix 45000 Multitrack Stereo Looper. Okay, so why the Electro-Harmonix 45000? First, multi-track looping. It's like having 4 loopers stacked in a row and being able to control each of the loopers' volume panning to your taste in a final mega loop mix. So add infinite overdubbing on each of the 4 looper tracks and you have quite a looping beast for composition, arranging, jamming, or live settings. Probably the main reason why I got this looper is because it's built as a tabletop unit, made to be used with your hands and not so much with your feet. The faders for each of the 4 looper channels allow you to choose the volume and panning for each of your sections and mix your loops in a seamless flow of phrases, textures, beats, riffs, solos, or whatever you fancy musically. If you combine this with MIDI programming, you can really command your loop lines as scenes like you would on a DAW like Ableton, for example. So the full MIDI capability on this looper have got to be another good reason for getting it. So if you're looking for a looper to sync to your synths, drum machines, digital delays, or DAWs, this is surely the machine of your choice. MIDI clock on the 45000 offers master or slave options to accommodate to any setting. Also, almost all the buttons on this machine are MIDI controllable via program change or control change messages. So if you're into MIDI and looping, this has got to be the machine for you. Another reason why I got this looper is because I'm still resisting to bring a computer into my gear set. I love the liberty of playing directly into my pedals with my guitar, my synths, or maybe my vocals sometimes, without the hassle of turning on a computer and having to rely on CPR, RAM, or sometimes cloud connections. But I also love what computers and DAWs can bring to my musical experience, especially in terms of recording and producing. So the EHX 45000 to me is like a pre-DAW workstation where I can experiment recording demos, and sometimes when the demos are too good, carry those very same tracks directly into my Pro Tools or Ableton and keep working from there. In a way, the 45000 is like an old 4-track tape Porta Studio, like the Yamahas or Tascams out there, but with unlimited space for digital recording at a professional sampling rate. SDHC card. This is another selling point for the 45000. The fact that your tracks are immediately converted to files in the SDHC memory card means that you can grab your loops as files and carry them into your computer for further production with DAWs. Conversely, you can grab any file from your computer and load it into the SDHC to be used on your loops in the 45000. This opens up even more possibilities to use this unit as a professional recording and production tool. So for keyboard players, synth players, and maybe for guitarists who use a lot of stereo effects, or for any setting where stereo is non-negotiable, then the EHX 45000 is the tool for you. This looper will let you choose a stereo recording mode so that your looper lines remain in stereo, and they can even coexist with mono loops on the same song memory location. This opens up endless creative and production possibilities, and once again, making this looper more a production workstation than just some old looper. The input signal control fader and panning is also one thing that can be missed on simpler looper units, but Electro-Harmonix gave complete monitoring controls over level and panning for the dry signal or input coming from the instruments. These controls allow you to send your input signal at any desired level and panning location to any of your loops or overdubs. Mixdown. So this feature is quite nostalgic to me. This is where I feel that Electro-Harmonix made a tip of the hat to all of us old-timers who grew up and learned music production at home with the 4-track tape machines. Mixdown is just an additional track available to dump the current mix of your 4 looper tracks so that you can free these tracks and keep adding endless layers to your creations. For musicians who would like to use this looper as a live backup band, Mixdown will come quite handy if you wish to play just one stereo mix track as your background. From here. Okay, so why not the 45000? First of all, this is an expensive looper, costing anything between $450 to $520 new. Add to this the more than necessary foot switch that sells for another $125 to maybe $150 new, and you've just spent nearly $700 on what, in most cases, let's accept it, is a toy. So make sure you're really aware of why you need it and why you want to get it, and avoid being the next seller on eBay after realizing that this wasn't really for you. Also, the 45000 is not an easy looper to work with, so it's not for beginners. So it's not such a user-friendly machine like other Electro-Harmonix loopers in the family or maybe other brands. So the many functions and tracks available also make it quite a complex unit. So it's unintuitive, and in some simple actions such as like recording or overdubbing, it's not so easy to use. So when you get into like quantized looping or external clock looping, things can get quite hard and quite frustrating. So beware, it's not a beginner's looper at all. So one thing I really miss from my previous looper, the Digitech Jamman Stereo, is the undo redo function for overdubs. If you're a looping musician, you'll know what I'm talking about. I had even created some songs using that function that allowed me to record an overdub part, let it play for a few bars, step on a pedal to undo the overdub, and then bring it back by stepping into the pedal again. The Electro-Harmonix 45000 misses this very useful functionality altogether, and that's a shame. Just as the previous point, I don't understand why Electro-Harmonix missed adding a fade stop function on this looper. The 45000 will only stop dead the playing loops, which is quite brutal if you're ending, for example, a long ambient piece. Having faders is not a replacement for a fade stop function. I'm sure there's a way to add a fade stop command via MIDI automation, but again, they should have included it. Why did they not include a tempo viewer or indicator of any sort in this looper is beyond my understanding. This is so bad. For a looper that runs MIDI clock master and that offers an onboard click track and plus a tempo fader, to not have a tempo indicator screen is like a car with no windows at all. So with the 45000, if you want to know your actual numeric tempo, for example 123 or 125 BPM, you'll need a separate piece of gear and synchronize MIDI clock to it. It's a shame. Finally, it might be a point to consider that this unit takes some space. It's big as it needs to be to fit faders, knobs, buttons, and make it comfortable enough. But keep in mind that unless you keep a smaller looper for light gigs, this looper, together with its quite necessary foot switch, will add quite some bulk to your gear bag. Okay, so let's start with the casing. The Electro-Harmonix 45000 comes in a metal aluminum enclosure. It's firm and sturdy, like most Electro-Harmonix pedals. This time it's polished in a shiny aluminum finish, which makes it a little bit like vintage and futuristic at the same time, which is great. Buttons. Okay, so the buttons on the 45000 are plastic and colored. Mostly they have one function per button, which is good. The material doesn't feel all that good. It's light plastic, even of a toy-like quality. I don't know why Electro-Harmonix went with this materials. It feels a little bit funny and bouncy, and there's like a spring sound beneath the button when you press it sometimes. But the action is good. I mean, they work okay, but maybe too good as they easily activate with unintentional touches of fingers and sometimes cables. Faders. There's 4 track faders plus mixdown, input and tempo faders. There's great action and finely tuned to provide a full range in a small scale. So there's almost no dead length or dead segments of the fader. That's where the slide would have no audible effect. So they're pretty trustworthy, right? The tempo fader is different in that it increments both the tempo and the pitch in sort of set values of whole steps in terms of pitch, and I think it's like a half a BPM in terms of tempo. The total range of tempo on the tempo fader is from 60 to 240 BPMs or 30 to 120 if the loop is octaved. Labels. The Electro-Harmonix 45000 is fully labeled with relatively big and well-contrasted lettering. All buttons, knobs, faders and ports are clearly labeled with no doubled functions, like what you see is what you get kind of style, which makes it in this aspect quite user-friendly. Knobs. There are various knobs on the 45000, they're all clearly labeled. They have a great action, they work perfectly well, and they're also finely tuned to provide a full range of panning and gain levels. The material is a rugged plastic, which makes them easy to maneuver, so there's excellent marking of middle positions on all knobs with bright colors. LED indicators. The 45000 has amazing LED monitoring for most of its relevant functions, so you will always know what's going on. There is even clipping notification LED indicators for the line inputs, which is really helpful if you want to keep saturation away from your recordings. Many LED indicators have solid and blinking modes to differentiate actions or functions. Some LEDs, like the external clock button LED, have different rates for blinking for different functions. MIDI configuration will also make an in-depth use of the LEDs on board. Connections. The ins and outs and ports of the 45000 are so many. This is definitely one of my favorite aspects of this looper. They can be divided into 3 sections. First, the analog section. You get the left and right high impedance audio input jacks. You can connect any instrument and control input level with a corresponding level knob. Then you get auxiliary input for maybe a drum machine, MP3, a computer, or any other audio source you wish to mix with your looping. This input does not feed the looper or recording section though, so it's straight to the mix or the outputs. We also have an audio output, left and right. So there's direct output at 400 ohms, which is the best way to send your audio to a sound card or a mixer with panning. Then there's the headphones output. It's a 1/4 inch headphones output with a volume knob. So you get everything here. You can control everything, including the tempo click. Next we have the digital section. This includes the foot switch output, which connects the 45000 dedicated foot switch using a 1/4 inch plug instrument cable. this output will also power the foot switch. The MIDI in and out, this makes the Electro-Harmonix 45000 a MIDI monster looper. They really packed this unit with MIDI capabilities, including MIDI clock, master and slave options, so you can synchronize to or from other MIDI gear. And there's a USB and what we could call a memory section. It's equipped with a SDHC memory card, which must be inserted for the looper to operate. You can use 4 GB cards, which will give you 125 minutes of recording, up to 32 GB cards, which will give you 6,000 minutes of recording. So you won't be running short of memory with this one. So the 45000 gives you 16-bit audio at 44.1 Hz sampling rate, which is obviously professional quality. And the USB connector allows you to connect the 45000 to your computer and read the contents of the memory card as a removable disk. Alright, so I really appreciate that you've stayed until the end of this video. It means that my effort was worth it, and that maybe and hopefully you've got what you came here for and you'd learned something about this great looper. If you did, it'd be great if you subscribe. So go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and do it. Okay, so I will post a tutorial for this looper soon, and most of my performances include this looper anyway. So as long as you subscribe, you'll be getting a lot more about the Electro-Harmonix 45000 in my channel. So if you like the backing video or tracks on this review, I've included the links on the information below so that you can click there and go see those videos where I'm, performing on the 45000 with my looping of, ambient music and what I put up on my channel. So I'd be really glad if you went and visited that. Okay, so that's it. Take care. Keep making music. I'll see you on the next one.